So the George Michael connection, just tell me about the evolution of the story and how it involved George Michael.
Well, I was asked if I wanted to write a Christmas story of some kind around Last Christmas, the song. And I couldn't quite work out how for ages and ages. And then various things happened and my husband came up with things, and then we came up with a story, and then we gave it, because we couldn't get round to writing the first draft, so wonderful performance artist called Bryony Kimmings did the first draft. And then I met George, and I'd never met him before, and he's a North Londoner like me, and more or less contemporary actually, and he was so lovely. And he loved the idea of the story so much. And I had no idea what a kind of massive social conscience he had and how involved he was with the homeless, with the big issue in particular. So it was so interesting to talk to him about the ethos in the story and the origin of the story and what we wanted to include in it. And he was so behind it. And it's tragic, the loss of such a great artist. And for us to know that he would have been with us as we open it is very sad, but I can kind of feel like he is there because we used so much of his music and we didn't realise how pertinent it was to the story.
So the idea was born, and then you took it to George. Was he, bemused or immediately saying, yeah, that's something I might have done? I mean, I just wonder whether, with his catalogue of songs, whether something that he might have been thinking of doing.
I think he did. I mean, it was years ago. It was 2015 I met him. But he was really enthusiastic. He said, and very kind of humbly said, you really want to write this is a lot of work. But he was such a lovely person to meet. I can't sort of emphasise that enough, how much I liked him. And I'm quite instinctive about people. So I know if they're not straight up with you. And he was really a good man. And I think we're all very sad about the fact that he couldn't be more involved, but we couldn't have included more of his work in the piece. And his family have been so supportive and so happy that this story, which is about loving kindness, really, in the end, it's about how we look after each other and ourselves at the same time and how important that is. And how much of a rebellion that is in this day and age, as Pink was heard to say yesterday. I think she said kindness is now an act of rebellion. It's a very good remark. Clever her. Anyway, he really loved all that, and he would have been, I think, very, very enthusiastic.
Because he used to volunteer, didn't he, anonymously at a homeless shelter.
At a homeless shelter, exactly. So there it was.
And that's the thing about George Michael, is that we're subsequently finding out all the stuff he did, charitable stuff he did, and kept it quiet.
Exactly. And that's so much a part of this as well, a part of the film. It's very strange how he became so central and what he did in his life became so central to the story. Because we didn't know. We had this character who volunteers at a homeless shelter. We didn't know George did that. Because, of course, he didn't tell anyone. Which is very kind of attractive, isn't it?
And the song at the end. So what we have is a new George Michael song, which is something we thought we wouldn't be saying. Yeah. How did you find out about it and then get the permission to use it in the film?
Well, his mate and manager, Dave Austin, who grew up with him and who I met when I met George, who's so lovely, came and found us and said, we've got this song which I think would be really great for your story, and when we listen to it and listen to the lyrics, this is how you'll hear it. You've heard it at the end. It was so right, and it's all as well about looking up, and part of the story is looking away from your phone and looking up around you, and so it was really through his good offices and his connection with George and wanting to help out and wanting to be a part of it. That's how it happened.
Were you a George Michael fan?
Oh, very much so. Listen Without Prejudice and Faith are my two of my favourite albums. Particularly Listen Without Prejudice. I listened to that whole album. His albums are beautifully calibrated. The songs going from song to song. I mean, in the olden days when we were young, we used to listen to albums because albums told a story. They took you on a journey, you know, and so I'm used to listening to the whole album. Whereas actually I think this generation is much more used to sticking on a song and then getting loads of different kinds of songs, or just that artist, but not in any particular order. Whereas albums are designed to be heard in a particular order. And for me, that's very important. So I will listen to the album, both of those albums, in order. And it takes you on a kind of musical journey that's very important, I think, and important to the artist.
You've said kindness is an act of rebellion. There's messages coming through in this film. What do you say to people who say this is an anti-Brexit film?
Oh, it's not at all. What it is anti is othering. I think what it's anti is intolerance. There's a scene in the movie where this guy just says to everyone on the bus, just if you can't speak English, get out of my country. And it was what was said to some friends of ours on the tube. In fact, it was much more violent than that. And I feel like at the moment our country is not, it feels very alien to me, because I think of us as deeply tolerant and curious. And curiosity is what saves us from racism, intolerance and cruelty, because we're curious about one another, we want to find out about one another. And then, of course, we find out that we all want the same things. We want to be safe, have enough to eat, roof over our heads, and we need to love and be loved. It's quite simple, really. So making people into the other it's completely counterintuitive. It's not what human beings are supposed to do. We're not designed like that. We're supposed to look after one another. That's what we're here for. I really do feel that, and I feel like helping each other is what makes us happy. Actually what makes us happy, much more than buying or gaining or getting rich or famous or whatever it is. Going to help someone, you know, random acts of kindness, absolutely, nature's Prozac.
I think it was Amelia Clark herself who suggested the anti-Brexit theme, that a family from the former Yugoslavia who come over, try to settle, they're not made welcome, and these notions of home and welcoming foreigners, very much in the headlines right now.
Yes, and you know, part of the story is the fear, as so many of our friends who come from all over the shop, the fear that somehow then, now they're not welcome. Friends of ours from Bulgaria just said, well, we just can't take it anymore, so we're going back home. So folk are leaving in their droves, you know, so if that's what you want, it's never what I wanted. So, you know, I'm definitely on the anti-Brexit side of the argument, and I'm sure nobody's surprised by that. But I also listen up to the other sides of the argument, and I hear it, I do understand it. But I think that in this now, where we are globally, particularly in relation to climate change, we are all going to have to learn to live with one another. Because like it or not, the density of human population is such that we are going to have to share. And we can't guard our own little patch in the same way as we did, because times have changed, they've moved on. And we've got to move, we've got to be practical about it. Apart from anything else, just practical. So it's practical kindness.
How do you take, every time you, I mean, obviously you have very strong beliefs and you have confidence to express them, you keep getting it in the neck though, don't you? If you look at the media. Today you've been talking simply about not giving presents at Christmas.
Yeah.
And what it's unleashed on social media, saying we don't want Emma Thompson lecturing us on how to run our Christmas.
It was about my Christmas.
How do you deal with that?
I don't have to deal with it because I don't read it. I wouldn't dream of reading it. Why would you do that to yourself? That would be like self-harm. No, because then what you're talking about, which we're not going to do now because it's a waste of time, you're talking about misreading, mishearing and reactive stuff that's sort of, you know, why would you do that? There's no point. I'm not in a conversation with them, I'm in a conversation with you.
The world is quite angry, isn't it?
So angry. So angry. That's why she said it, Pink. kindness is an act of rebellion, because everyone just seems to want to kind of shout at each other and judge harshly and blame. It's so weird. I do think there's a tremendous amount of anger about.
What about the reviews for the film? There have been some bad reviews, haven't there?
Yeah. All I can tell you is that Love Actually received the worst set of reviews of any film, and one of the reviews for Nanny McPhee was one line in The Guardian, another piece of tat from Working Title. That's all I have to say about bad reviews, because Love Actually and Nanny McPhee have survived pretty well.
The good thing about this film compared to that Working Title group is that we recognise London in this. You obviously made a very conscious effort to show London's multicultural. It's not Notting Hill, not the Notting Hill that.
Yeah, that's right.
But I thought this was a direct riposte to that. Really, that this is our London.
Yeah, I loved that, and that was Paul Feig, our wonderful director, who is of course foreign. But he loves London and looks more sort of like an English gentleman than anyone else, because he's always dressed up in these fantastic three-piece suits from recordings. And he adores London, and the way in which he dealt with our city it was like watching him take her on as a sort of dance partner in Strictly Come Dancing. It's Strictly whatever it is. And he just wanted to dress the city up in these beautiful colours and lights, and it looks amazing.
Just going back to George Michael, who I adored, who we all adored. Do you think it's 3 years since? I can't believe it's 3 years since he died. But it's a nice way of reminding us, because what happens is after someone dies, then people come out of the woodwork and there are unpleasant headlines. His former boyfriend, that's making all the headlines at the moment. It's a reminder of he was a musician. It's a refocus on the music, which is what all George Michael fans really want.
That's right. It's a kind of, there's a lot of love letter in it to George, but also to his fans, because it got the blessing of his family, who've dealt with a lot, talking of vile people on social media, vileness on social media, God knows what they've had to put up with. So it's sort of written into the soul of the film, all his ideas and his poetry, which is unexpected for us. Paul, who didn't know the albums as well as I know them, hadn't heard Heal the Pain, for instance, and didn't know it well as a song, and it's now his favourite song. And it's a fantastic pop song, but the language in it is absolutely what the film's about. How do you look after yourself? No one can love you if you can't love yourself.
And he would have loved that, wouldn't he?
He'd have loved that.